This is CyberSound, your simplified and fundamentals-focused source for all things cybersecurity.
Welcome to CyberSound. I'm your host, Jason Pufall, joined today by fellow Vancordians, Steve Maresca and Brian Brehart. I always like to introduce this and see if I can make you squirm a little.
Thanks. Hi.
So today we're going to actually introduce a new potential segment. I think maybe we'll do it quarterly. I don't know that we have a frequency necessarily. It's all, but I'll credit where credit's due. This is Brian's idea, and I think the idea was let's do a what's hot or not style segment, and I think we'll typically have a couple of items that maybe have a little bit more meat on their bones that we might spend a couple of minutes on. I think we're going to try to run through a 20-item hot or not quick takes list at the end. But the idea really was, in the spirit of trying to provide information and in a way maybe debunk some of those things that seem really really hot or popular in the news that may or may not ultimately feel that important. And just have a brief discussion around them. So yep. We'll give this a go. We'll see where things kind of end up. Brian, thanks for the idea. I think it's a fun one. So we'll see.
Oh, I got a million of them.
I know, no shortage. So I think the first one is, and I'm gonna kick it over to Steve real quick.
A phrase that left my mouth and I regretted immediately.
It's hot.
It's the risk management minute.
It's hot. I like it.
I'm so sorry.
I love it.
In any case, this is about firewalls being compromised, which has been not new. It's been, frankly, a pain
for a long time.
For multiple years, but particularly reaching a fever pitch maybe in the last 6 months, 8 months. Here's what to think about. Your firewalls contain identities for helping people to authenticate to their VPN. They have certificates for getting things protected. Those are worthy targets if you're an attacker. If you have a firewall like a Palo Alto, FortiGate, anything else, it doesn't matter what the vendor is, assume that they are being targeted, assume that they are being attacked, and that there is possibility it can be compromised. What they're trying to do is pull off secrets, pull off configuration, modify it so that they can get access and do some more work in your systems. What do you do if that happens? Well, you have to reset passwords. You have to make sure you rotate certificates and, consider what access is afforded to internal systems once that has been compromised.
So what makes this hot? Is there an uptick in vulnerabilities?
I wouldn't say there's an uptick in vulnerabilities. There's an uptick in weaponized vulnerabilities and true impact. We're seeing more entities being compromised in this fashion than we have historically. That's it.
Okay.
So be safe.
Any comment on that, Brian?
I agree with everything Steven just said. It's not an uptick in vulnerabilities. We have, kind of the same amount. But yeah, it does seem like they're getting more bold, the threats against these vulnerabilities, and they're kind of taking advantage of them a little more. So yeah.
One dynamic to also keep in mind is, there might be a vendor advisory. It might have some mitigations. Make absolutely sure that if you apply mitigations, you go back and check the advisory, because sometimes 2 weeks later
they don't work.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that actually is the reason some of the entities we've worked with actually have been compromised in those firewalls. It's unforced errors in the vendor side of the equation.
Yeah. So in spite of doing the right things, still find yourself in.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how it goes.
So our second topic is there's new federal security incident reporting obligations. I know, Brian and Steve, that you both have had conversations with existing customers
Sure.
around some of these obligations. It's interesting to me, so I feel like I put this in the lukewarm category because I feel like there have been reporting obligations. So what's changed here that makes this hot to you, or is it a not?
I think it is not a not.
Okay.
I think it's maybe something that will make people wince. I don't know if that means it's hot, but this is the Critical Infrastructure Act of 22, Cyber Incident Reporting, CIRC-CIA as an acronym. It was put into place in March 22, but it's been, frankly, a slow roll for getting it deployed since that time. It's been in comment period up until June 3rd, 2024. So it's about to become real. This has come to us from customers that are not considered those with critical infrastructure. So they're trying to interpret whether they have reporting obligations. The new change here is that, within 72 hours after an incident has likely occurred, it needs to be reported. If a ransom payment is made, it needs to be reported within 24 hours. And it authorizes CISA to request information and compel information disclosure. That's kind of the meat of this act. And most entities need to know that unless you're classified under federal rules for critical infrastructure, it probably doesn't affect you. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't behave as though it does. It's more of a best practice to report aggressively and as soon as you have information.
Yeah, that's more doing the right thing rather than being obligated.
Exactly. But the types of entities covered are chemical processing plants, manufacturers in critical health safety industries, power generation, power transmission, state, local entities, some educational facilities, some, not all. Generally speaking, public essential health services and so forth. There's a huge list. We can publish an article on our site. We'll maybe make that a little clearer. But the point is, it may impact your organization. It's worth checking.
Okay. Third one, and this one, that actually I have to say, this one seems a long time in the making. It feels hot because it maybe is a decision, but reported, I believe today or yesterday. I actually have to be careful because I have to be careful of the language, because then Google won't actually allow us to promote our podcast. So I'm going to say there has now been a decree that we can no longer sell Kaspersky in the United States as of September 2024. I believe it's September 29th is the specific date of 2024.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, that's hot. And I say that's hot because I've been in a variety of conferences where Kaspersky speaks. And of course, right, the elephant in the room for them always is you're a Russian-owned company. What's the risk if we were to actually purchase you? They always redirect that to talk about the quality of their technology, with frankly, that I think their technology is good. I think you agree with that. But there's always been the underlying concerns around, can the tool be weaponized? Can it be used for something malicious? I think the language in the statement that was made was that the software can be used for something malicious. I don't know that there's any evidence that it has been used for anything malicious, right? So it's really, I think, a mechanism to theoretically protect us against the potential threat in the future.
Right. And, the basic determination is that it's considered a risk by the U.S. government. Therefore, any government-aligned entity that still has Kaspersky as a software platform needs to make a migration step.
Right.
Generally speaking, there aren't going to be penalties for organizations that do still use Kaspersky.
Right. Or renew.
Or renew. Yep. But just be aware of that aspect. This is not necessarily new. Many organizations migrated away from Kaspersky in the 2014-2016 timeframe. It's kind of a 7-year slow burn, but this is an enforcement action, which is a new ratcheting up of activity.
Yeah, and it started, in 2017 when it was banned from government computers. Right. And then there have been other governments throughout the world who have enacted similar nationwide bans. So, yeah, as far as like hot or not, it's a smolder to now we got kind of like a bonfire.
Yeah, to hot, right? Yeah, but that's a fair way to put it, right? It definitely sit there for a little while, kind of keeping things warm, and now it's official.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
All right, Brian, you are up. You've got a list that you ought to walk through. So we'll see how this works.
Okay, I'm a huge fan of the magazine Wired, and they have this thing called Wired, Tired, and Expired. So this is kind of where I got it from. So we are going to have a list of 20. I'm just gonna run through them. Minimal. You're just gonna say, is it hot or is it not? And we're gonna start with I would say the second big thing happening in the world, generative AI. Is it hot or not?
I mean, it's lava hot, obviously.
Yeah.
and will consume all of the water and cooling capacity of data centers worldwide. Yes.
Yes, it is hot. There's no doubt about it. Scripting automation. Is it hot or not?
I mean,
not.
Welcome to
Yeah.
1997 and 2005 if you're slow on the uptake. I guess.
Maybe if you've never touched a system before, it's hot, but no, not.
Well, I mention this because it's there was a whole like, do you have Python scripting? So in most job descriptions. So, but I think with generative AI, no, it's not.
Yeah, it's squarely not.
So,
and even without it, it should be squarely not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Social media.
That caused both Jason and me
did.
to have a very painful sigh.
I'm going to say hot.
Say hot?
Yeah, I think there's enough change in the space that there's always news about what you should share and how risky it is for you. So I will put it hot because of that, not because it's new technology, but because the risks that people have around.
The only way I'm going to agree there is because people are irritated about it. But I think mostly it's cooled substantially in the last several years, and rightfully so.
Okay.
It's a mess.
I'm with Steven. I listened to a podcast called Offline, and they talk about they do polling, and they talk about how like kids are just leaving, with the exception of TikTok. They still love TikTok. So, okay. On that note, smartphones, hot or not?
Oh boy.
Not. I mean,
Nope.
they're largely unchanged for 10 years, right? Short of maybe some improved apps.
But we have 3D binocular cameras now.
That's just pretty sweet. You got to weigh in on it.
Next time we'll do smartphone add-ons.
Yeah.
This one I love because I love making fun of this thing, the metaverse.
Second Life. I mean,
that's not hot.
no, that's
Second Life is
that's
not
on
hot.
ice.
But I will say the metaverse, it's hot for those that can wrap their head around what the potential is. But I think for most people, it's not clear enough what the possibilities are.
I think there's a great deal of venture capital being thrown at a wall to see what sticks, and a lot of it most of it doesn't.
But something will. And so maybe it's smoldering. It'll be hot, but maybe not quite yet.
I've been hearing that since like 1994.
Sure. I'm an optimist.
I'm a firm not, because if it was gonna fire, it would fire by now. And I think, to Steven's point about Second Life, that never really took off. So
that's true. So we need to circle it. We need to run this one back in a year then and see if we're hot or not.
Yeah. While we're on the subject of Meta Quest VR.
Nope.
Yeah, that's a no.
No, hot. I'm going hot.
You're going hot.
The folks that I know who use them, they use them privately, but they love them. They love them for exercise. They find them immersive. The price point isn't that high. It's a really interesting gateway into that type of product. You're not wearing them on the street. I get that, but I think they're hot.
I'm not here for the bruised shins.
Okay. All right, then. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I think I'm obviously more bullish on some of this stuff than you guys.
Yeah, you are. Well, while we're on that, the Apple Vision Pro, which you technically should be able to walk down the street with.
You should.
I've been interested in such things. I don't own any such device, but they're close. I mean, I think you mentioned a certain fiasco, Brian, earlier. That's worth invoking, right?
Yes. If we all recall the horror that was the Google Glass, which I will say, when it came out, I was total hot on it.
Total hot.
But then you came to realize, there's all these privacy issues, and there's that poor gentleman who got physically assaulted, by a customer in a store. So I think AVP and stuff like that will become, once they kind of make it smaller and they realize, I think it's potential to be hot. I think it's a cinder right now.
Okay.
But I think when we use it in terms of industry, I think we're going to see a real big thing for it.
So let me just say,
wearable tech
I think so. I think they have the potential to be hot if the application is, if you can get the application out there. So the one use case that excites me that somebody brought up is they potentially have the ability to translate languages in real time. So imagine walking around another country and having that as a capability. That would be hot. But otherwise, I think the privacy issues and I think the way it separates you from other people is still too much of a challenge and too much of a hurdle, and people will not have a hard time getting over that.
Yeah, I mean, look, this type of technology has existed for a really long time. Augmented reality and so forth. We're talking 30 years. It's just miniaturization and localized processing that's been the problem, right? That, if it works, yeah, we're good.
And comfort, like, as we talk about the uncanny valley of it all.
Right.
So, hey, Brian, I'm about to call a quick audible because I think in the interest of time, we were supposed to just say hot or not, and we all want to have opinions.
Yeah.
Why do I think, for the fun of it, let's jump down to the last three and cover them.
So let's do that. The last three are online privacy.
Always hot.
So hot.
Yep.
So
hotter
hot.
than
nuclear.
Hotter than the corona.
But I'll admit, is it hot for us as security and privacy professionals and not that hot for a lot of other people?
I think people care increasingly so.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Caitlin Clark.
Admittedly hotter than expected. Entered the WNBA with a bang. I think it's been outstanding for the sport, in spite of maybe people's negative reactions to some of to her entry in the sport. I love it. I'm solid hot.
Who is Rebecca Lobo, Alex? I need to crawl out from under a rock. I'm sorry.
You do. Yeah, you see only the most widely known female athlete right now.
I have two girls.
Yeah.
I'll catch up
There
soon.
you go.
Yeah, I've been watching WNBA, and the stadiums are packed.
They're full.
Yeah,
it's great.
And they're coming. So the what are they called? The infection, the virus. I can't remember Indiana's team, but it's like a disease name.
Fever.
And
fever. Not the. They don't. It's not this. Not the Indiana infection.
Yeah. The fever. They're coming to Chicago because we played on their pond twice. And I looked for tickets, and they're starting at $275.
Right. So you can't deny, right, that positive impact.
Right. And I bet you I can get a Bulls game for less than that. So
you sure.
Okay, the big one.
The big one.
Even bigger than generative AI. Taylor Swift.
Amazingly still hot. Like I have to admit, I love her music. I can't. I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to deny it on air. I'm going to shout it out.
I'm just going to say marketing and business genius more than anything else.
Sure, but damn, she can pack a stadium, and she's been doing it for, I don't know, 1989? Was that her first one? So, a long...
Well, now you're getting a little far afield from my expertise about
I might
Taylor,
be wrong,
but...
I think. Does anybody know? No? Does that sound right?
We're just proving that we're a little...
Is that the year she was born? So that probably wasn't her first album.
She does have an album called 1989.
See that? All right. So I thought she had an album called 1989.
We should stop while we're ahead.
All right. Yeah, I mean, you're 50. I'm 53 years old. I'm doing my best for Taylor Swift.
I will agree. She's hot, and for all the reasons, for what filling stadiums, marketing. I give her credit for that. I had to look up what Taylor's version meant, and to her credit, she took possession of all of her creative works, and I think that was huge. I think that's huge just in the industry. I think because she's Taylor Swift, she took advantage of her status and said, "I'm doing this," and I hopefully this will open the door for other artists to do the same thing. So, she's hot.
Yep. Yeah, and for a long time, and I don't foresee it stopping.
Yep.
So
that's it. I hope we can do this again though, because I think it was great.
Actually, that's honestly. So I'm looking for more. How do we make this a little lighter and how do we make it more fun? I think this is I think it's a great segment. And so I'll end with if anybody has feedback, I'd love to hear it because I don't know. I thought this was a darn good idea. See, poor Street, she's Sure.
I'm a grumpy old man.
I know. Anyway, Brian, thanks for joining and thanks for the idea. I think it's a good one. And
Sure.
maybe we want to add even a tiny bit more substance to the first part around tech that people have to be a little bit more wary of, because the security industry does a great job selling products. I think it's our job to say these are legit and these are ones you might want to think twice about. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right, Steve. Thanks everybody who's listening. Appreciate as always listening, and hope you found this one enjoyable.
We'd love to hear your feedback. Feel free to get in touch at Vancord on LinkedIn. And remember, stay vigilant, stay resilient. This has been CyberSound.